in 10 months of uninterrupted power supply, notwithstanding the setback over the weekend, the turnaround 30 hours, and we did explain ourselves just to build the reserves, and the outlook extremely positive going into the future. And once we get synchronized unit number 6 Kusile, unit number 4 Midupi, we're going to have a completely different conversation. But the underlying problem, it's a growth problem. So for as long as you don't resolve that growth problem, you'll continue to expand the social wage. As you expand the social wage, you are putting pressure on your fiscal resources, and there's so much that we can borrow, and I think we're getting to the tip of the borrowing. Of course, borrowing is not a problem, debt is not a problem, it's the degree to which you are able to service it. But for as long as the economy is not growing, you will not succeed. And that's why we're doing everything possible to ensure that there's sufficient supply. And then the next agenda, which I'll announce in the next 2 weeks, is how we resolve load reduction.
All right, and you know, business typically has a keen interest on the State of the Nation address to hear specifically what is said about all these important issues, including the growth you've alluded to. I suppose the question is, what is the message to business as they watch today from your portfolio about what the next couple of months look like, especially because you've already mentioned that we're not necessarily out of the woods, so to speak?
Well, the point is that we must be transparent. So I think we are not going to mask any challenges. So the trend line is positive. Like I said, once we get that 1,600 megawatts, 800 will come now in February, Kusile number 6, Midupi number 4 next March, and then I'll be announcing in the next 2 weeks, I think, our investment on the transmission side, the biggest post-apartheid bill program by government. So I mean about 440 billion rands. So we've designed instruments to support that. We can't rely on the sovereign balance sheet. So I'm confident that we're going to get it right, and business will hear those messages. And of course, the counterparty, because we have liberalized new generation capacity. So I'm confident we are on the right path.
Minister Continental Ramokgopa, thanks very much indeed. The electricity minister there speaking to us about his own expectations. From one portfolio to another, higher education and training, Buti Manamela is the deputy minister in that portfolio. And Deputy Minister, you'll introduce your guest from Motheo TVET College, who you've brought through here, and you'll tell us why. Higher education at this time of the year in sharp focus. You've heard the refrain already. So many matriculants working hard to get through high school, so little of them getting a chance to pursue a higher education.
Yeah, and I think over and above the matriculants who got through, you have about 4 million young people who are not in education or employment or training, and that's the main focus. And those young people can't go to universities, and even those who pass their grade 12 can't all go into university. So we can't just have lawyers and doctors and and so forth. We need plumbers, we need welders, we need electricians. So we need those kind of skills that will help build South Africa. These are the people who are actually keeping this country, moving. If you're talking to the Minister of Energy, if you're talking to the Minister of Public Works, any of the ministers, anyone in the private sector, the people who are basically building the foundation of this country are people who are doing it with tools. And so, but we've fashioned careers and all of that around people who wear suits and stuff. And I think it's about time when we say, the real skills are from there. And that's why we're using this State of the Nation address to profile vocational skills, and that's why I'm here with the principal of Motheo TVET.
Yes, and I'm going to interrupt you, Deputy Minister, just to get a quick word from the principal. Your ambitions, very quickly, 30 seconds today.
Is to see young people participating in the economy, but getting skilled through the TVET colleges. We offer programs that are responsive to the labor market. We just introduced occupational qualifications that represent exactly the careers within the system. So it's important that young people should know that there are qualifications called electricians, plumber, which they can be able to attract it.
Thank you very much. There you have it. All right, the sentiments being shared here from the Higher Education and Training Ministry or department in the country. Bulelani, plenty of people to speak to. Who do you have now?
Thank you so much, fighting crime and corruption is expected to be one of the main themes that the president is expected to speak on when he delivers the State of the Nation address. Of course, one of the institutions that has been doing a sterling job in making recoveries of money stolen from the state is the Special Investigating Unit. Advocate Ndimo Tibi is the head of the SIU. Thank you, sir, for being patient, and thank you for your time. Firstly, you've been receiving quite a number of proclamations from the president to do investigations. Are you making headway? Because sometimes I get the feeling that you are co-governing in some of these entities and departments.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. The number of proclamations that you refer to is really a clear demonstration that building a capable state cannot happen without fighting crime and corruption. And you've seen from what you're saying, the number of proclamations that have been issued really cover at all spheres of government, provincial, national, and local. Lately, you would have seen that there's a few proclamations issued covering even the KZN space, Itala Bank, amongst others. You would know that that bank presents a case where monies of indigent people could have been deposited, and we need to make sure that we dive deep and uncover the rot that happened and why is it that the bank is where it is today. So we do that in various of the other institutions where we are investigating.
What would you say to those who are defending that bank, the Itala Bank, saying it was doing some good work?
Look, it's for us really to go and, as I say, dive deep. But and you know that there's a few contracts that are specified in the proclamation, but amongst others, we're also going to dive deep into maladministration and failure of governance, and we will then have to then pronounce whether there was good work being done or not done. So it is very critical, and I'm mentioning this as an example because it cuts across all the entities, all the institutions of government, that we need to ultimately make sure that while we investigate, we also really contribute to the governance and the administration of these institutions towards building a capable state.
All right, thank you so much, Advocate Ndimo Tibi, the head of the SIU. For more commentary and reactions on the floor, we cross to you, Lulama.
Thank you very much, Bulelani. I am joined by the Deputy Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Peace Mabe. Ma'am, you're looking fabulous.
100% locally made. Thank you very much for having me. SC Apparels.
Your portfolio, there's so many issues that the art industry wants President to address. What would you want to hear from him?
Look, especially that we are hosting the G20. We are the hosts of the G20. We expect, of course, President to talk about the role that the creatives will play during this hosting period of the G20. Opportunities that would be there, of course, if we invite people from different countries to South Africa, we need to showcase talent. We need to show them our culture and, of course, talent that is here in South Africa.
There's also, ma'am, the talk of school sports, because that's where you groom future champions.
Yes, school sports is an ongoing topic, of course. We have just signed a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Education. We believe in grassroots sports because if we do not nurture young talent, there's no way that at the age of 25 you can just become a professional. So school sports is very important so that we nurture children at an early age.
Thank you very much for your time, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
With that, Natasha, take it over.
Thank you so much, Lulama. We're still here on the red carpet, and of course a key feature that is expected to actually dominate today's State of the Nation address is issues around local government. And of course my next guest is a person who's been speaking about and talking tough about local government, about service delivery, the creation of jobs, and of course the SEZs in Limpopo that the government wants to implement. How far is that process, Premier Popi Ramotobi?
No, thank Thank you very much. At least we are starting to see progress on both the Fitakhomo Tobatsi, SEZ, which already we have a number of investors who have made commitments. The day before yesterday, who were here for the mining in Daba. We have signed an MOU with some of the mine like Glencore, which is operating around the Fitakhomo Tobatsi SEZ. So work will continue. We are just waiting for the national government to declare it and to license it, which a commitment has already been made that before the end of this financial year we should be. So you would start to see a lot of development happening in that part of our province. And coming to Musina Makado SEZ, we've also made a lot of progress since the last year, wherein challenges which were there, including the issues of the land transfer, wherein public works at the national level had to sign. Treasury has already given concurrency in that. So we are making progress. We have already also receive a lot of commitments. Minister of Electricity is also assisting us, especially on the renewable energy within that part. So our SEZ, they receive a major boost during our investment conference, because if you look at the 150 billion that were pledged during that time, those billions of rands were also catering and covering for our 2 SEZ. So we are confident that this year we will start to see, and the people of Limpopo will start to see something happening, because all along they hear about this SEZ, which are going to create jobs, but they don't see anything happening. But working hard with all stakeholders, we think we are on the right path.
Dr. Poppy, thank you so much for your time. And by the way, you're looking very beautiful in your South African-made outfit. Of course, this is as I toss to my colleague, Bulelani Phillips. Bulelani, who are you with now?
Thank you so much, Natasha. I've got a very familiar face I haven't seen in a while. Mr. Lichisa Tsinodi, the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
What are you doing with your time nowadays?
Learning how to be retired, and of course going around a little bit, traveling a little bit, visiting places that I've always wanted to visit, and it's great learning about the proud history that our country has everywhere else.
All right, you miss this place, Telela?
No, I've done my bit, so I must focus on other equally interesting things out there to confront the priorities that people are really demanding of government.
And you, as a South African citizen, what would you expect the president to speak on that would touch you as an individual?
If in the overall what the president says touches the people where it matters most, that their ability to be employed, their ability on their own to deal with problems of poverty, but the state to remove the major obstacles to unemployment, to poverty and inequality. Those things are doable. The correct practices must be followed without hesitation, with no doubt at all. People demand that and nothing less.
Quickly, I'm out of time. Do you believe in the GNU?
The GNU is a construct that was arrived at, and unfortunately it means we are hobbled to a certain extent. We would have loved to be together with all those that we agree with fully, so that we advance the interests of the people without hindrance of one kind or another.
All right, thank you so much. All the best, Mr. Lechisa Tsinodi, the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. For more commentary and reaction, Natasha, we cross to you.
Thank you so much, Bulela. And of course, we're getting reactions from every sector of society, not only our officials. We're joined by a representative from NEDLAC, Mr. Thulani Chefuta. Thulani, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. So, your expectations from the SONA, especially around issues of, inclusive growth, job creation as well?
We actually expect that the President should take the bar to a level of articulating programs that are going to support the priorities that have been agreed upon in the medium-term development plan. And there is general support for focus on economic growth and employment creation. There is support for the fight against poverty and tackling the high cost of living and the capacity of the state. So he must articulate programs that are going to buttress those pillars of work. Most important of all must be a dedicated focus on how we boost the skills in order to link those to the labor market and create employment, especially for young people.
And you speak to some of the priorities that were outlined by the President at the opening of Parliament last year. We had set key priorities for the country for the next 5 years, but people are also saying that they can't see tangible results, on the ground. We were told that South Africa is being turned into a construction site. What tangible things can we see?
The first of those is that you have electricity and water sitting on two sides of the equation. If you don't address those, they become a binding constraint to investments, to growth and job creation. But if you address those, they leverage investments, growth and employment. And the progress that has been made on load shedding is a positive sign that must be commended, because its impact does not only affect businesses and economic growth, but households at a community level. And so across all of those, there are activities. That's why we're saying the activities that must be articulated to say, when we say we fight poverty, what are we doing?
Thank you so much, Ned. Like there, of course, let me link to Ayanda right now. Or am I looking to Bulelani? I'm not so sure, but a gentleman, whoever can hear me first, please take it away.
They're going to take my chair. I don't want to...
All right, thank you so much. We are in a scrum here, Tasha, but I'm going to speak to former Cabinet Minister Ms. Naledi Pandor, who's just here on the red carpet.
I think that we have institutions in the country that can help to build capacity. It's one of the interests we have in the Nelson Mandela Foundation to contribute to improving public sector capacity and ability to execute projects. We can offer that kind of support to government, our universities can. So let us use all the skills institutes to help us to do better.
What do you make of the impasse between South Africa and the United States as a former foreign affairs minister?
Well, I think you've got to continue diplomatic efforts. I believe that it calls on our diplomatic team to really intensify their communication, to clarify our policy positions without detracting from the independence of our own policy. But I think it's a matter that can be handled with good diplomatic efforts.
How do we deal with the misinformation, particularly in relation to the Expropriation Act?
Well, really, it's obviously not been read very well, because if you read it, you can't have those interpretations. So someone has been misinforming the Americans, and apparently it's one of our own NGOs in South Africa. Shame on them. So I think we must correct all the misconceptions and ensure that we put our position very clearly.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Naledi Pandor, former Cabinet Minister. We're now going to cross to the other side of the precinct where Ayanda is standing by.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Bulalani, of course, plenty of people to speak to. I'm standing with Tokyo Sekhuale, needs no introduction. Great to speak to you, sir. There's been a lot of talk around government working at a local government level. You've had a role that you've played at that level, and I wonder where you reckon we could start.
Well, instead of talking about local government here on the pavements, we want the President in the State of the Nation address to strike the right note on the question of local government. That's where electricity is. That's where water is. And things are going wrong here. That is where you have potholes. So the government has got to plug those political, policy and implementation potholes. That's point number one. I hope it strikes the right note today instead of, there are many challenges, such as those coming from Africa with the divisions in Congo and so on. The President should not spend time on that, although he may make references. On top of that, there are issues around the world. Palestine, he can make reference to that to show that we are part of the world. He can make references also to the tensions, not too much, that we have. That will be addressed later, that are coming from our traditional trading partners, the United States. However, for today, the people want to know the state of our nation, not the state of the world. What are the issues around unemployment? What are the issues around poverty and so on? Remember, 30 years ago, there was a government of nationality, so this is nothing new. It was addressed by Nelson Mandela for the first time. We want to say 30 states of the nations. Thereafter, what have we done and what have we achieved? That's the challenge of today. Go ahead.
It's an interesting sentiment. I mean, do you think you shouldn't speak about the DRC even though 14 of our soldiers have died there?
No, sir. I didn't say the president shouldn't speak about that. Don't get me wrong. I said he must not spend time on those issues. He can make a reflection. He can attach part of the speech to what happens in Palestine, Americans, to show that we are sensitive to those issues. But today, we want to hear him more on what troubles South Africans so much. Remember, there's local government, as you said, elections coming within a few months from now. That's what the president would like, the people of South Africa would like to hear from their president, the state of our nation. He'll find time for the state of the world. But we're looking forward. Congratulations to him. I hope he strikes the right note and it's with pinpoint accuracy.
Is this the cash money that you're going to give him?
I keep a secret.
Right. Toke Sogole, thanks very much indeed. All right, there's plenty of people to catch up to. The momentum is picking up very quickly where we're at. Natasha, I know you're speaking to a few people, but I want to see if I might be able to grab very, very quickly, if you'll indulge me, Mameloko Kubai, wearing a different hat, looking stunning, by the way. Is it local?
It is local, done by a woman in Pretoria, Divine Touch, a touch of Setsonga, which is my own tradition today.
All right, and it's giving a bit of a mermaid flair to it. You are in a different position now, having it taken over just a few weeks ago, but there is so much attention to law enforcement and the country's prosecutorial powers. Are you anticipating the president to say anything new about that today?
Yes, we would expect the president, even if it's not new, because the issue about fighting crime and corruption has to remain with us until we deal away with all. So it's not about new, but reaffirming our commitment as government to deal with corruption. So I'm expecting him to re-emphasize dealing with GBV. It's important so that the courts are able, the environment is enabled to be able to deal with gender-based violence and femicide. Those are most important, but also for us as the executive and the state to respond and recognize that the judicial arm remains one of the most critical and important institutions that keeps our democracy.
Yeah. There had been reported tensions between the NPA and your department. Are we over those as you and I speak today?
Look, when I arrived, I asked what is the tension, because I met with them. There could be differences in how we implement things, but there are no tension where I'm sitting. I have explained to both of the teams. They know we're sitting around the table regularly and engaging. So I'm comfortable that everybody will do their role in ensuring that South Africa has an efficient and effective justice system.
All right, Mameloko Kubai, thanks very much indeed. The Minister of Constitutional Justice speaking to us. Natasha, I know you're standing by with a bit more color this evening.
Definitely, and of course I'm joined by our country's gem here, Miss World South Africa, looking ever so beautiful. I hope you are dressed in a proudly South African outfit.
Absolutely, I am dressed by the one and only Casper Bosman, a true innovator, incredibly creative individual, proudly South African, so I'm privileged to be standing in his outfit here this evening.
You're, as a young person yourself, I mean, we've been hearing young people say that they lament the high unemployment rate, which sits at 49.14% when it pertains to young people, issues around no space at higher institutions of learning. What do you expect from the president, and how do you expect him to actually address these issues that actually plague young people in the country?
Can I tell you, I think me standing here today is step one in the right direction. As a young individual myself, I've understood what it means to facilitate your own success, and that's what I as an individual want to teach to people, and hopefully our president can draw inspiration from that. Seeing what we are doing, seeing what we can do and what we can contribute can be inspiration to him to actually open up spaces, to give us a podium to be loud about the causes close to our hearts. So I hope that can inspire him to give us more opportunities, not only within the space space, but globally as well.
Thank you so much. Awesome seeing you. Let me take this conversation also to Kenny Kunene, who is the Deputy President of the Patriotic Alliance, as well as the MMC of Roads and Transport in the city of Johannesburg. And I think first and foremost, let's just start off with serious issues. Mr. Kunene, we've seen what happened, in the city of Johannesburg. Those two Rea Vaya bus drivers, unfortunately, being fatally shot. What do you expect to hear from the president, especially when it pertains to issues around transport?
Thank you very much, Natasha, for having me. Obviously, the GNU, this SONA is a different SONA. Different parties have made contributions in their departments as to what they want to see, as to the service delivery targets. So we expect this SONA to be different. We expect this SONA to be practical. But what you are mentioning of the drivers that were shot, it's a clear example of how crime is so rife in our country. And one would expect the president to speak to how this GNU government is going to fight crime, is going to make sure that our people live in peace. But one of the things that we also expect the president to speak to is how are we going to secure our borders and must deport all illegal immigrants, because whenever they commit crimes, their fingerprints are not in the system. So we expect the president to talk to unemployment. How is the GNU going to mitigate the issue of unemployment, create jobs? How are we going to make sure that we make South Africa great? So these are some of the things that one expects the president to touch on. Sports, arts and culture is one department that is responsible for social cohesion. How are we going to strengthen that department so that we see the issues of social cohesion being dealt with in a very serious way?
And I want to cut you in there. You speak about social cohesion. We were covering your minister yesterday, issues of expropriation, of land, saying that there are those quarters who are deliberately lying and peddling lies about the expropriation of land in the country. Also further, labeling AfriForum as a terrorist group.
Yeah, look, if you are in South Africa and you are an institution or an association and you speak against your country, then you will be labeled as such. Number one, we must be patriotic. We must put South Africa first. We must defend South Africa even when we disagree with others outside of the borders. Even when we agree with them, we must still defend our country. In as far as the utterances of President Trump are concerned, we need to take that as a wake-up call. Trump is basically saying, wake up South Africa, wake up Africa. You cannot continue to depend on other countries for your survival when you have minerals. So this must be a wake-up call to say we need to depend on ourselves. We need to make sure that the minerals that we have in this country serve the interest of our people and our country and lead us to prosperity. So there's nothing wrong that Trump said from where I'm sitting except to give us a wake-up call. Let us stop.
What do you mean there's nothing wrong with what Trump said?
Everybody has got the right to their opinion, but the fact of the matter is whether Trump misinterpreted what was said or not. But the wake-up call is let us stop depending on superpowers for grants and funding when we have minerals where we can be able to fund ourselves and develop this country. So it is a wake-up call.
Well, Mr. Kenny Kunene, on that note, before I toss to my colleagues, we must scold you. You are wearing international brands, and the theme today is, are you wearing proudly South African? Clearly, you're not. So next year, please follow the mandates. Ayanda, who are you with?
All right, Natasha, thanks very much indeed. I'm standing with the Tourism Minister. You'll forgive us because there's a lot going on within this vicinity, Minister. I'm sure you'll agree. You look lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
What are we wearing?
That's Sandy Masabuko, up-and-comer designer. She's got her own label, Fabrice Sands. And the print is inspired by the capital, Tshwane, Pretoria. So it's got a picture of an aerial photo of the Union buildings. It's got our own rands and cents on there. And you know, all the architecture within the city of Tshwane. But of course, Amapiano was also born there, so the street culture. So, you know, we said, let us put the capital on the map. And then she came up with this design.
Wow. You have worn so many different hats over the years. You've also at some stage lit this city, which is now named among the best in the world. But speak to me in your capacity as the tourism minister, in a context where we know tourism does so much for a country like ours. What is difficult, though, is that we don't always have the best stories being reflected elsewhere in the world. And I imagine that brings its own challenges.
Yes, but you know, tourism is growing. We welcome 8.92 million tourists in 2024. We've seen a growth of 10% coming from America. We've seen growth from Africa, from Brazil, from all over the world. And we just must do more with getting more international airlines to fly into our country. But we've relaxed the visa regime, and two big source markets, India and China, will now be able to come to South Africa also on a 90-day visa. We have appointed tour operators in India and China to boost the tourism. So I'm very upbeat about the growth coming from two big source markets, India and China. But also we are hosting the G20. And we're going to have more than 135 business events alone, besides the big heads of state one that come in.
Are you worried about what Trump's comments might do to that, though?
No, not at all. I don't think that all the Americans are on X, and I don't think all of them are listening to him. They're coming. Those flights from America, it's full on a daily basis. And I want to say to the American tourists, they're always welcome in our country.
All right, Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille, thanks very much indeed. There you have it, an optimistic tourism minister despite what's being said geopolitically speaking from the US. Natasha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ayanda. We'll be joined shortly by the Minister of Small Businesses and Development, of course, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams. And she'll be talking to us about, the work of her department and the initiatives that have been put in place, of course, to support those, who own small businesses in the country. Of course, we've been speaking to young people throughout the country saying that much more needs to be done to support local and small businesses. And talking about local businesses, we've got this brand behind us that says, "Are you wearing local?" But actually, here she is joining me right now, wearing local, looking very beautiful, I might add. And who are you wearing today?
House of Ole by Ole.
So, Minister, let's just get straight to it. Last year, in the opening of his Parliament address, President Cyril Ramaphosa had said that they are convinced as government that small businesses and the informal sector hold the greatest potential for inclusive growth and job creation. But, you speak to the young people that we've been speaking to in Cape Town saying that, please look at us, please fund us more. What initiatives do you have for them that can actually support them in the small businesses?
Well, we provide lots of support to small businesses, not to young people. Different sizes, different ages, but what's important, you should be a small enterprise, whether you are medium or a cooperative, and we provide both the non-financial support and the financial support. Now, what we mean about the non-financial support is when we provide instruments like the equipment that small businesses need, or the training that is required, or assistance with the compliance, because now people are not able to get opportunities because they'll be saying this small business is not compliant. So we assist them with that. But the other crisis or the other challenge that they're faced with is that of lack of affordable infrastructure that they must use to trade in, whether as accountants, like we've seen lots of accountants, doctors that are struggling, and we have stepped into that direction to say we're providing infrastructure for some small enterprise.
Last question, Minister, it's a very important year for South Africa. We are hosting the G20. How will that translate to job creation, especially from small businesses?
Definitely, if you are bringing the G20 in South Africa, it means firstly, the opportunities in the tourism industry, all the different segments in tourism, but those are opportunities for small enterprises, the creatives, the entertainment that we're talking about. That is why we've set aside a particular funding that is looking at upgrading the lodges, the guest houses, the hotels that are owned by especially black-owned small businesses. And then we're also helping the creatives with some of the information that they need and the financial support that they require to make sure that everybody enjoys being the president of the G20, because it is not only government that is the president of G20. It is South Africans, because South Africa is hosting. Therefore, it's not our glory, it is South African glory.
Minister, thank you so much for your time. And of course, let's toss there to Yanda. I believe he's got guests.
Natasha, thanks very much indeed. All right, let's jump straight into our next guest. Velenkosini Hlabisa is the Corporate Governance Minister. Slipped my mind for a while there. Minister, great to see you. Thanks very much indeed for making a moment. You and I are speaking as the countdown to the deadline for the registration of spaza shops looms even closer. I wonder whether or not you reckon this incredible nightmare that featured in our country over the past couple of months will in fact be reflected upon by the President today.
Indeed, this is the first SONA of the President under the GNU. It's going to be a different presentation to the nation. He will be reflecting on challenges the country is going through, but also offering solutions. We are just from the Cabinet Lekgotla, where we agreed on minimum things that the 7th administration must concentrate on: the recovery of our economy, dealing with the unemployment issue, fix our government in terms of service delivery. The local government will take a prime feature, because for our country to work, our local government structure must be functional, more investment must be done on infrastructure, more job opportunities must be created. Young people should be our focus in order to ensure that we invest in the future generation.
Absolutely. Another very important issue, of course, has to do with making sure that the local government, as you've mentioned, does work in ways that it should. And I wonder what you reckon a good starting point is, given how long-standing this problem has been at a local government level.
The opportunity this time around is that at a cabinet level, we all agree that we need to rally around the local government sphere, make it work. This attention has never been given before. It is now that we all realize that for investment to occur in our municipalities, they must be functional. So if we want to fix challenges of South Africa, we must fix the local government sphere, and this is a common approach we are taking. There is an interministerial committee composing of 15 ministers dealing with local government in order to make it work, assisting COGTA, all of us pulling our ideas together, and it is indeed going to be functional this time.
Velenkosini Hlabisa, thanks very much indeed. That is the Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister, speaking very highly of the Government of National Unity, even though we know the IFP, the party he leads, is among the organizations that have taken exception to the signing of the expropriation bill into law. That aside, Natasha, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Ayana. We're now joined by the Deputy Minister, Nongceba Mhlauli. Thank you so much for joining us. Girl, who are you wearing? What are you wearing? You are snatched.
Thank you so much. I'm wearing a dress by SONA Makibi. She's a young female designer, and I'm so happy that she was able to put together something for me, and I genuinely just love her work.
I think let's just talk about the G20, how this translates to young people as well, prioritizing the Global South.
One of the things that we're actually really looking forward to is the President speaking about the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, which is obviously an initiative that is housed in the presidency, and the work that has been done ensuring that young people get the necessary training that they get, but more than anything, how do we place those young people into sustainable jobs. So obviously with G20 coming and all of the 130-something meetings that we're going to be having between February and November, we're really hoping that some of those conversations will be an agenda that places youth at the center of what becomes sustainable development, not only for South Africa, but also for the continent and for young people around the world, because the issues that affect young people are the same. Youth development is a global issue. Youth unemployment is a global issue. Youth unemployment on the continent, is something that affects us all. So we're really looking forward to those conversations of getting all of the global leaders around the table to chart a way forward to deal with this very important problem.
Nongceba, thank you so much for your time. You're also joined here by Action SA leader, Mr. Herman Mashaba. Perhaps, your expectations for the SONA, Mr. Mashaba, especially, seeing what we're seeing in the country, the spats over the Expropriation Act, the spats over the Bella Bill, the Bella Act, I beg your pardon, NHI. What are your expectations as Action SA?
Well, I think, let's not as a country really deal with side issues. Let's really deal with real issues affecting 12 million unemployed South Africans. So we really really hope that the president today, for the first time since the ANC lost the grip over power, let's see what this grand coalition is going to do. 70% block, so they have the power to bring in the laws that can actually make a meaningful lives to millions of our people who are today unemployed. 80 people being murdered on a single day, the rape being the order of the day in our country. We really appeal to the president not to be taken over by side issues, or people talking about expropriation, human rights abuses, on things that do not exist. So let's focus on South Africa. South Africa is a sovereign country. We can just have to really look at our constitution. There's no way in our constitution where any country in the world has got a say in the domestic affairs of our country, and the president needs to provide that leadership. He needs to get all these what are called traitors, let them provide evidence of what they're selling to the international community, talking bad about our country.
Thank you so much for your time. Let me just get more reactions here. I've got you, Auspinki. Oh my gosh, wearing a white and black. Girl, you are the girl that you think you are. Look at how beautiful you are. Can we just, before we get to critical matters, look at you, looking so nice. So who is this dress made by?
BG from South Africa, Gauteng. She has always been one of my dressers through and through. And you can see she can't disappoint.
No, she outdid herself.
And my other name is Sharon. So I'm the Rose of Sharon today.
Okay. Rose of Sharon, on to critical matters, the expectations for the State of the Nation address.
Look, one of the things that we know is going to be top on the agenda of the president is capacity of the state to deliver and the professionalization of public service. Something very close to all of us, and we are saying we are ready.
Thank you so much. Let me just quickly bring in Deputy Minister David Mahloba. Thank you so much. And his partner looking very beautiful, ma.
Thank you.
Who are you wearing?
Not advertising anyone. I just went to the shop.
I hope it's proudly South African though.
Definitely.
Let's talk about issues around water. Water challenges, water shedding.
What will happen, His Excellency, our President, will prioritize the question of fixing local government and service delivery. In service delivery, our matters of water will be very high because they are becoming a binding constraint, both for the economy and a number of South Africans. There's been a lot of disruption without having access to water. We have a very clear plan on how are we going to ensure water security around bulk infrastructure issues, but we must then fix local government in terms of reliability of supply, the technical capability, then mobilize, including the issues of funding, because most of them, they are broke. They even owe our water boards, they owe ESCOM, they must be paid, but issues around financial provision, financial support, and operational capability will be at the center of some of the issues we must take forward.
Deputy Minister, thank you so much for your time. And I do believe you also have guests. What's on your side right now?
Yeah, Natasha, indeed we do. The ministers keep streaming in. I'm now standing with Dr. Groenewald and his partner, Mrs. Groenewald. Lovely to see you both. Thanks for making time to stop by. We have to start by just getting a sense of whether you got the memo about wearing local.
About what?
About wearing local. Local is the idea today.
Wearing local, I'm not going to reveal the name where I bought everything, but yes, it's local.
Okay.
Everything, nothing important.
Fair enough. I have to engage you about the sentiments from the United States. You must have seen what the Secretary of State there has said about South Africa, again alluding to the land policy issues as were reflected by Donald Trump. The perception out there is that what's happening in the US is largely because of the sentiments fanned by the Freedom Front Plus and many of your followers about what is happening in the country. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, I must put it very clearly that myself and the Freedom Front Plus is against the Expropriation Act at this moment. We are vehemently against expropriation without compensation, and I do not apologize for that. Therefore, I did formally or requested the President to not sign it, but refer it directly to the Constitutional Court. He said no, he's not going to do it. So we will take it to the Constitutional Court. I said that the glue that will keep the GNU together is constitutionality. And this is a matter of, we believe it is unconstitutional when it comes to expropriation without compensation, and we will continue with that. And of course, I already said that if a country donate certain funds to a specific country, and that country does not act in terms of the Constitution, they have the full right to revise their decision. So it's for the United States of America to make their decisions. But let's first see whether the Constitution and the determination of the constitutionality on the expropriation without compensation.
I don't want to misquote you, Dr. Groenewald. Are you saying that the United States officials are justified in saying what they've said?
Well, I don't know exactly what every word they said. But what I do say, it is justifiable that the United States can ask exactly what is going on in South Africa, but they must find out what is going on. And if someone says there is no land grab in South Africa, I disagree. I can bring the proof that take for instance, Olivenhoutbos, there was land invasion, and that is in the media, and that is totally unacceptable.
But that's not a government-sanctioned thing, unless that's what you're saying, that the government had sanctioned people moving onto that land.
I didn't say the government sanctioned that.
But that's the insinuation from Donald Trump. Part of what he said is that there's a confiscating of land and there are human rights violations, which he alluded to being legislated.
That they must sort out between themselves. As I said, I didn't read everything what he said. What I know is that they asked questions, and they said they want to acquaint themselves exactly about what is happening in South Africa. I think I welcome that. And if we don't have anything to hide, why will we complain about it? We must invite them. Please come in and see for yourself what is happening in South Africa.
All right, Dr. Groenewald, Mr. Groenewald, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Really do appreciate the time. Those are the sentiments from the FF Plus, a member of the GNU, by the way. Natasha, let's continue canvassing the sentiments of the people streaming in now here at the red carpet. Who do you have?
And indeed, they are streaming in. We're now joined by Minister Dion George. Minister, thank you so much for joining us on the channel. I think first and foremost, before we go to your expectations, let's talk about issues that you face as a department, issues around climate change. You know, there's something I read up about illegal fishing that I didn't even know was actually a concept, and that is actually costing our economy.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, one of my responsibilities is to make sure that we protect our exclusive economic zone around our coast. And one of the complexities that we have is we're obviously very under-resourced. You know, our economy is not growing, government had to cut back on its budgets, etc. And it's very, very expensive to do that kind of work with the ships, etc. So we are under-resourced, and we do know that there are foreign nations that are fishing illegally in our waters. It is not legal for a foreign vessel to fish in our water, but we do surveil it, but often we're not able to catch the perpetrators. So we do what we can, of course, but also very importantly, we engage with other nations. We talk to them and say, this obviously is stuff that you cannot do, and so let's not do that. So I think that that works well, because of course South Africa, we're a non-aligned country, we're friendly with everyone, and that helps us a lot, because everybody knows that we're a nation, we're becoming something, we are still emerging, and so there's such great potential, so let us do that. And that's the message to everybody in South Africa too, is we're such a great nation, there's so much going for us, we're so diverse with biodiversity, etc. We have got a lot going for us.
Minister, thank you so much for that. I do believe that, Ayanda, you're also joined by more guests on your side.
Natasha, thanks very much. Let's jump straight into it. Nomvula Mokwanyane is the first Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. She's turning eyes, I can tell you, as she walks through here. I'm asking everybody the same question. Are you wearing local?
I'm wearing local. My face beat and my hairstyle is done by 2 young women from Kayelita. And then my garment is done in Gauteng by Entlembali.
There's a clear theme going on. I wonder if you can take us through it. I mean, was it intentional or were you guided by the stylists?
It was intentional. If you understand the pinstripe, what it stands for, mostly it's men who wear pinstripe suits. They stand for confidence, for authority, as well as for decisiveness.
The president is going to need all of that when he takes to the podium today, especially given what's taken place even in the last 24 hours, given the sentiments we've heard from the United States. Let me just get a sense from the ANC what your posture is to some of those comments by Donald Trump and those reiterated by the Secretary of State?
We are a rule-based organization. We operate on the basis of existing standards of communication, and hence we will continue to engage with the United States of America through our diplomatic channels, through ministerial positions, as well as through dialogue of different political parties and civil society in the United States. So we do believe that we have a responsibility of making the Americans, those who have been misled, to understand that we are nowhere near what has been peddled around.
Yeah. Very quickly, if you can, Ms. Mokonyane, this is the first SONA with the ANC not necessarily in charge. How should the president negotiate that?
We all as a nation agree that we need to grow our economy, we need to create jobs, we need to fight crime and corruption, we need to make sure that there's quality education and access to health services. That is not something that belongs to any party, it's non-partisan. And today's State of the Nation address will be a revelation of a common vision.
All right, Nomvula Mokonyane, thanks very much indeed. Really do appreciate it. Nomvula Mokonyane, of course, is the first Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. You can see some collegiality taking place between the top leadership of the ANC and of the DA, John Steenhuisen, and also, of course, the Agriculture Minister. Great to see you. Big day for the Democratic Alliance. You come into this not on the opposition benches, but actually as being a part of the government of the day. Do you feel the weight of that on your shoulders? Because there is a responsibility that comes with it.
Absolutely, and we joined the government of national unity because A, we wanted to prevent the country sliding towards a populist, radical socialist agenda, but secondly, to be part of the growth and jobs agenda for the country. We now have the experience that we've built up at local government, at provincial government. We're bringing it to bear now in national government departments, and I'm very proud of the work that the DA ministers have done within cabinet over the last 7 months. The incredible work being done by Leon Schreiber to reduce backlogs, deal with border insecurity, the work being done by Dean McPherson, incredible work by Savira Gahube, the work being done by Dion George to protect our natural environment. All DA ministers are already pulling together towards the growth and job agenda, and it's great being able to make things happen, not just talk from the outside, but to now be at the engine room of actually making things happen.
Yeah, you speak about pulling in the same direction. That doesn't necessarily ring true for the government of national unity as a whole, especially when it comes to the recently signed pieces of legislation, the Expropriation Act now, NHI, Bella. The question, I suppose, is there was actually a mechanism to deal with things like this before they spill over into the public domain the way they have. And I suppose I'm asking whether or not you reckon that works.
Well, I think there's definitely been some teething problems. This is the first time we've had a coalition at a national level for plenty of decades in South Africa. It is new for South Africa. There are 10 parties in the coalition, and the view that all of these parties will agree with each other all of the time is wishful thinking. Of course we've got differences. Of course we've got different views of the world. But we've got to focus on what we do agree on, and that is growing the economy and creating jobs. Yes, we're upset about the way the Expropriation Act was handled, and yes, we're seeing the consequences of that now playing out on the global stage. However, we're going to court on the expropriation bill. We want to get it back into Parliament so we can have a bill that's in line with the Constitution and which entrenches the property rights as a cornerstone of our economy. So yes, there will be differences from time to time, but it's how we manage them. And I think that the President had a very constructive conversation last week during the Cabinet Lekgotla about how we could better manage the political relations within the coalition to make sure that we don't have these disagreements out in the public streets, but we're able to have them behind closed doors, and we can find each other. We agree that we have to have universal access to basic health care. We agree we've got to address the land imbalance in South Africa. We agree we've got to grow the economy. We agree we've got to create jobs. And those are the areas where we've got to find each other.
Yeah. Very quickly, I know it's getting louder, but we're doing a good job so far. We speak about managing relations. How well do you reckon we're doing with that insofar as our relationship with the US is concerned? And I suppose the secondary part of my question is, if come December and we haven't been able to sort these things out, should we just go ahead with the G20 without the US? I mean, assuming that it's even a call that we can make.
Well, I think that, first of all, the G20 is not South Africa's G20. Right. It is a multilateral forum, and it'll be a shame if America doesn't participate in it, especially seen as they're the inheritors of this G20. They're the next G20 presidency. Look, it's very clear there's some unhappiness from our trading partner about a long path of things that have gone wrong in their eyes. Lady R, the relationship with Iran, some of the BRICS decisions that have been made. And it's very clear we've got to go and talk to them. There's also a lot of misconception that they are basing their decisions on. And I think that's why the sooner South Africa can send a high-level delegation there to sit around a table and say, this is the GNU, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is our agenda for growth and jobs. This is not the sixth administration, it is a new government. And we need the United States as a strategic partner. They also need us as a strategic partner. And I have no doubt that we can find each other and have a mutually beneficial trade and diplomatic relationship.
John Steenhuisen, thank you very much and all the very best. John Steenhuisen, of course, the leader of the DA and the agricultural minister. Natasha, there's singing, there's dancing, and there's people to speak to. Who do you have now?
And on top of that singing and dancing, we've got ministers queued up waiting to speak to us and our SABC viewers. I'm joined by the Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Before we get to those critical questions, I can see you're joined, well, you're actually dressed by Almond Dads.
I definitely am dressed by Almond. We're keeping it South African, 100% South African all the way.
And you're very beautiful, I must say. So you're the custodian of the National Development Plan, and your job is actually to ensure that policies are actually implemented by your various government officials and your government counterparts. So what happens if they don't actually implement those policies? Is there a form of accountability mechanism?
There's definitely a form of accountability mechanism, precisely because when we evaluate performance based on what we have agreed upon. For example, the medium-term development plan have just been agreed upon, and all the APPs of all departments will be evaluated based on that. So when that doesn't happen, when we meet, myself, the president and the deputy president, with different ministers, we raise those issues where they will then now account to the principals on why certain things haven't happened. And intervention will then now come if we really do believe that those things will not happen at the time that we have set them to actually happen.
And just lastly, before I go to Minister Gayton McKenzie, we've been speaking to young people who've been speaking about policies, good policies, but the lack of implementation is a problem. And yes, you've partly spoken to that, but I mean, why is it that South Africans South Africa, we have good policies on paper, but implementation is the lack of problem?
The problem was more silos. Now that we have taken a different approach to say that we will have all of government approach in terms of implementing things. For example, if you are going to be talking about social cohesion, the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture will be the lead department. As a result, that will then now make sure that all policies are implemented timelessly.
And talking about social cohesion, let me just bring in the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. I hope you're wearing proudly South African, because your sunglasses don't look so proudly South African.
I was just grabbing. So yeah, I've got lots of clothes in my wardrobe. I don't know is it. Yeah.
So let's just talk about critical issues. I mean, you've got a huge task. The minister spoke about social cohesion. It's also an important year for South Africa, the F1 Formula 1 bid. Let's just talk about those issues.
Yeah, sure. Listen, one thing that you must understand, we are not being shaken by what you saw this week. We are solid as South Africans. White, black, Indian, colored. We are one nation under God. Don't let this little thing shake us. It doesn't shake us. It's a country. The glue is too strong that unites us. And the ones that's wishing for the GNU to be separated, they are going to wait a very, very, very long time. The GNU, we are solid because we put South Africa first.
And hopefully that message that the president will be delivering will be solid. And I do understand that you're also joined by MK party members as well.
Yes, in just a moment we'll get to that, but we're going to start off, Natasha, by speaking to Dr. Bridget Motsepe, who's with us, wears so many different hats, has represented the country in so many different ways. Let me just get a sense from you. How well you reckon we're doing with maintaining relations on the continent? We know that's a big part in driving through business interests to the country and ensuring that South Africa's influence continues where it's actually been left off.
Yeah. I'm happy you're asking that, because I'm also the Goodwill Ambassador for the African Union Parliament for Inter-Africa Trade, Economic Development and Entrepreneurship. Our continent's parliament is in South Africa, and the relationship is very unique because they come 5 times a year to South Africa, the parliamentarians from the 55 countries in the African continent, to come and interact. What we need to do with Africa, our brothers and sisters in the countries, is to share with them what we have achieved in the 31 years in South Africa, not to sell tell them, better to share with them, but also learn from them what they can teach us. But to share, the charter, the Tokobi Code, you find that the ownership profiles of this legislation has achieved a lot. Many people in South Africa never owned the 31 years of age, own a mine, own a bank, own whatever it is that we're never allowed to own. But now what we need to do in Africa is to integrate the beneficiation. We need to stop exporting our final ore and bring in as a final product.
Right. And a big part of that, we're told, was meant to happen through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So much has been said about that particular mechanism, but many people will tell you we're yet to see the fruits of that mechanism, especially after it was passed by different countries on the continent.
We are in control. We already have a section in the law that says penetration must in municipal tourism, the MPRDA. And then, we also had special economic zones that are tax incentive zones. What we need to do is to ensure that our ministry lets the mining houses inform them who the end product user is and end beneficiary is, so that those companies can come and produce here in our country, the special economic zones, which are already tax incentive zones. That's what we need to do.
Sure. All right. Dr. Motsepe, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Really do appreciate the time. So there you have it. Sentiment in some ways from business. We have no doubt that business is going to be watching very closely what the president has to say, given, of course, the potential benefits. I'm going to ask you if you can make way in this way very quickly as we welcome our next guest. Needs no introduction, but we'll do it anyway. The spokesperson of the MK party. It's been a busy day for you. And in fact, there is, let me say, a lot of stakes. The stakes are very high. That's the term I'm looking for as we come into the State of the Nation address, because the MK party is the official opposition, and we have a history in the country of a lot of rigor insofar as that role is in fact concerned. How are you feeling coming into that?
Well, we're feeling like the incoming government. That's how we're feeling, because we know that the president is not going to say anything that's new. The state of infrastructure, whether it be municipalities alone, totally dilapidated. Ever since he's been president, there's nothing good that he has done. So we don't expect anything of a miracle in terms of what he says. And if at all, we need to remember that this so-called state of the nation, this GNU state of the nation, excludes 25% of the electorate. So how can it be a state of the nation for the unity of South Africans?
What do you mean by it excludes 25% of the nation?
It excludes 25% because you don't have MK and EFF as part of that.
We were told that discussions did happen, and it was the MK and the EFF that weren't
and that's the biggest problem about being told by people who are liars and whose agenda, as was mentioned by Helen Zille, that this coalition is a coalition of convenience. It's not a GNU. She said it herself. So on the basis of that, it was to appease business and to protect Cyril. That's why we were excluded. And that's why that creates all sorts of negative narrative in the media saying that we didn't want. How is it possible that we as responsible leaders would be so responsible not to ensure that our people's agenda is not taken care of or consolidated in this GNU? Absolutely. But again, we would not be part of this so-called GNU.
Yeah, that's going to be my next question. Because, it was Jacob Zuma who said that he doesn't want to work with the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa.
No, this is a South Africa's party. It's not just a Jacob Zuma-led party. And I think that's something we need to clarify and make very clear. Remember, when we had negotiations, we engaged with the ANC and we said, let's form a coalition alongside the EFF. Instead, the DA dictated to Cyril and said, as long as they are not there, we will not be part of it. The three of us alone, that's a good 60% of the electorate. So why does he choose to fraternize with racists that have a total dichotomy in terms of policy posture? Because that's what you're going to see here, a state of the nothingness address. Thank you.
All right. I was hoping to get you to reply to that, but very quickly, the chairperson of KwaZulu-Natal is also here, of the ANC, that is. You must have heard what the MK party has said. I'll just start off with that. Accusations that you're fraternizing with racists, and that is what the government of national unity is. My concern, though, is that there is still such a massive fragmentation even within this parliament. And I don't know whether to put it down to politics or whether or not the country should be concerned about that.
Lenin spoke about the political infancy. I think it's something we must take into cognizance. The president, who is accused of many things, amongst other things, has signed the Bella Act, has signed the NHI, has signed expropriation of land without compensation. For me, that on its own contradicts. It's a serious contrast. I'm sure we must be glad of what has been done by President Matamela. He's brave, he's strong, and in fact, against all odds, he is able to say that whatever, irrespective of what is currently happening, the new dispensation of what preserved by President Mandela, I'm just going to proceed with that. So whoever is saying what, I'm sure, because opposition in the country called South Africa, they don't understand. They would want to be diametrically opposed of what is currently happening. Today, everyone is currently saying that South Africa is stabilized. The GDP is slowly getting that growth trajectory, which is positive for us. And President today has already started the process of industrialization. I'm sure it's going to be emphatic when it comes to that point. We are dealing in unemployment in the country called South Africa, so it means that the issue of service delivery is something that must be prioritized as a matter of the cornerstone.
Yeah. Well, the last time you were here for the State of the Nation address, the ANC was in a very different position nationally and in KwaZulu-Natal. What is the posture that you're taking right now as we enter this new dynamic very quickly, given the very clear challenges that the ANC has even conceded to?
We have a document, a blueprint called Strategy and Tactics, which talks about political setbacks, talks about material condition. You must juxtapose, understand what does that mean. Already in the year 2025, the ANC is in the leadership, but there are other coalition partners in the GNU, in the GPU. It means that as much as you are emphatic in the port, take that in cognizance, embrace that, go back to your solicit, your constituents, because that's what you must do with humility. Sure. Go to your people on the ground, talk to them. This is what you're going to change going forward.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you speaking to us. Plenty on the go. Natasha, that was the chair of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. It's over to you.
Thank you so much, and I'm joined by the National Chair of Rise Mzansi, Vuyisa Ramokgopa. She's also the MEC in Gauteng. Now, you deal with a very crucial portfolio in Gauteng. How do you expect this SONA to actually translate into that, especially around issues of agriculture and land?
No, look, I mean, I think this week alone has been quite an important week in terms of the strengthening of property rights and just clarifying, you know, what the environment, what the terrain holds in terms of land reform and legislation around land reform. And I think that should be on balance very positive for the agricultural sector. You know, we have a growing number of small-scale farmers who are raring to go, and we have a challenge of food insecurity, not just in Gauteng, but nationally. You know, 25% of our country is food insecure. So the more we can actually use land productively and ensure that we are putting people to work, employing more people, getting more people actually eating, the better.
Lisa, thank you so much for your time. And by the way, forgive my manners, you look ravishing. Let's just quickly wrap up here, of course, with the Deputy Minister here, Mr. Naren Singh. Thank you so much for joining us. I think key priorities, yes, we've spoken about issues of climate change. One issue that people really don't, pay attention to is the issue of waste management and how this actually impacts so many communities. You have areas where waste is not collected, hence creating pollution, hence then resulting in issues of climate change. How do you specifically want to tackle that issue?
Well, there are innovative ways of dealing with waste management, and we introduced a program a few days ago on e-waste management, where people were invited to give off their old cell phones, computers, etc., etc. And I think there's money that you can make out of waste. And we as a department are going to be focusing on encouraging our young people, and particularly women, to collect waste so that they can earn income. And waste can be turned into very, very good products. It can be used for the roads, it can be used for building houses, and we've seen it around the world, and we need to use best example and implement those ideas here, and that's what we're going to do.
Thank you so much for your time. Of course, this is it from us on the red carpet. We will be bringing you reactions after the President's State of the Nation address. It's back to you in studio, Bongwe.
Theory there on the red carpet for us, and you can see in picture that's former President Kgalema Motlanthe and the former First Lady Gugu Motlanthe as well, Sakina.
Indeed, and as we had heard, they will be in attendance. We're also expecting former President Thabo Mbeki to attend this evening's proceedings, but there you have the former President arriving. And again, just looking at the time, I think, you listen to to everything and watch everything on the red carpet, where we completely forget and lose track of time, because the president is meant to speak at 7 p.m. So this is getting into, you know, the thick of things now in terms of the ceremonials that will take place.
And Sakina, as you speak about, you know, the president addressing, a lot of South Africans will be looking to see if their issues are going to feature in what he has to say, because yes, you can talk about the big plans, you can talk about what you want to do, you can speak about the dynamics in the government of national unity, but if someone doesn't have water, if somebody doesn't have electricity, it really defeats the purpose for them.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, as the SABC, we are going to zoom in now, you know, give you a sense of what that life is like for a real family. And we are going to cross to our reporters, because, you know, this is what it's about. How do real people relate to the State of the Nation address? What is it that they are interested in? Because we tend to focus very much on the high level stuff, because of course it's important. It's going to have an impact on how government goes about its business, what it spends its money on, and how ultimately things ought to be delivered. Whether they actually get delivered, this is what the real people on the ground will tell us.
And you also think about the fact that, Sakina, as you talk about that very issue, when we were told that load shedding is coming back, the number of South Africans who reacted gives you a sense of what exactly is important to them. They speak about the fact that just after you approve tariff increases and then this happens, then at the same time, Sakina, you contend with some of the communities that would have had load reduction, and for them it's a lived experience all the time.
And a terrible one at that, because whilst the rest of us had to contend with load shedding, those communities that experienced load reduction had to contend with load shedding and load reduction, which meant that they would go for the majority of the day without electricity. And that is the reality for many people in many areas, many towns, many municipalities in this country. So this is something that needs to be addressed. And I think there was talk about how this was not meant to be, you know, a continuous matter, but we need to go back. We need to backtrack on this, because why was it implemented in the first place? You know, if one remembers correctly, there was talk about municipalities that owe Eskom money, and therefore, you know, that was part of dealing with that particular matter. But if they say, no, this is not what was meant to be, well, then government has a responsibility to come back and speak to the people and tell them exactly what is going on.
And especially because if you think about right now, we're in 2025, we still talk about load reduction that is caused by people that are accused of connected to the grid illegally. At the same time, there's cable theft. How has it not been that that particular issue is addressed, and knowing how to deal with the issue of cable theft once and for all? At the same time, Sakina, you think about even the concerns around the fact that if you then have load reduction, if you then have load shedding, then you have no water. That's pretty much a triple challenge.
As we watch the visuals on our screen during this conversation, Bongiwe, the Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Mandisa Maya, arriving, and she, of course, the first female Chief Justice in our country, and being flanked there, of course, by the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. And we haven't spoken much about the ceremonials, but of course, these are the people who will come and welcome, followed by the Secretary to Parliament, Kolile George there. So we are already into these processions.
And as we have alluded to earlier on, Sakina, is that we are speaking to ordinary South Africans, getting their take on what they hope to hear from the President tonight. And one such colleague of ours who's actually sitting with the family that is going to be watching with keen interest to hear what the President has to say is Griselda Lewis. Griselda?
Well, thank you very much, Bongiwe. And I heard you speak with Sakina there about the issue of load shedding. And I can certainly tell you that one of the areas, and in fact where I'm sitting right now, is an area that does not have electricity. So the family that I'll be speaking to in just about a moment will not be watching television and watching the President's State of the Nation address, but in fact they'll be listening to it on a battery-connected radio. So the community here basically says it wants to hear from President Cyril Ramaphosa about, some of the successes, of course, that government has made, but of course where some of the challenges still remain. Those are some of the issues that they say they want the President to address. Since your coverage from this morning, we've been hearing from ordinary South Africans about what they hope the President is going to address. Of course, this is the first State of the Nation address in the government of national unity. The President, of course, would need to have consulted all the members in this GNU, but the bottom line is whether South Africans, as they listen to President Cyril Ramaphosa, will take what he says and all of the solutions possibly that he might allude to some of the challenges that South Africans face are things that will go to actual reality. So I'm going to bring in the Vilakazi family now just to get a sense from them on what they want to hear the President say when they listen to the radio in just a little less than an hour now to the President's much anticipated State of the Nation address. Mama, siyabulela ngesikhathi sakho kakhulu. Nifuna ukuzwa uPresident ekhuluma ngani namhlanje benisithi nizawulalela kwi-radio ngoba nina anizange nibe nawo ugesi la.
Asinayo igesi. Asinalutho. Ama-toilet asinawo, asina-nex namanzi. Basusa ngale emzabalazweni basiletha la esontweni. Bathi bazosinika ama-stand i6. Namanje sihlele emzabalazweni asisuki. Ayikho into lesiyenzayo sihleli nje sibasa ngeenkunzi asinagesi.
Right, that's Griselda Lewis there. We'll bring you that audio as soon as we can. Do apologize for that. And it's ironic. This is what we just spoke about. And now we hear of this family that's going to be connecting to this battery in order to at least be able to hear what the President has to say. And Sakina, different government ministers have been talking about the fact that they want accessibility of this particular speech for many South Africans. So it does speak to the issue of accessibility. I do understand Griselda's back. Griselda?
Well, that's right, Bongiwe. I must apologize there. The network is also not very good in this particular area because there's simply no electricity. So, Umama, I'm going to continue to speak to her, Mama. Beni City, bekungena akuna gesi lana. Upresident nizomlalela kwi radio ni city lana nezindlu azikho. Ngicela uqale phansi, mama. Mangithathele.
Lana basusa ngale emzabalazweni wangale basiletha la bathi bazosinika itende kanti bazosifaka emzabalazweni la esontweni sihlele emzabalazweni akunagesi akunazindlu sihleli nje akunani asina toilet asina manzi sesihlalele nje namadoda ethu azashona sihleli nabantwana nabazukulu ayikho into ephumelelayo la.
Siyabonga kakhulu mama masigqithele kuwe mama. Nifuna ukuzwa uPresident ekhuluma ngane namhlanje mama njeba ezokhuluma naba South Africans ngokuthi yini lebayenza abayenzileyo njengo government nokuthi yini le abasezoyenza.
Sifuna ukukhuluma naye ngendaba ezindlu neyitrati. Akuna strati, akuna nex. Mina ngamlambo isibongo sami. Neyitrati azikho, akuna manzi, akuna zindlu, akuna nex. Sihlele esigangeni siyanethwa kule mkhukhu esikuyo. Since basusa le la besihlala khona sihleli for 31 years la besisuka khona. Basiletha la. Nabasiletha ngapha emalahleni sihleli 6 years, 6 years manje asithola indawo and council siyawavotela ama council wonke siwavotela kodwa mara impumelelo ayikho basithembisile basisusa ngala besihlala khona leni basiletha ngapha kule ndawo le athi hayi ngizonilungisela basitshela ukuthi covid after that kwaba i-covid until namanje kusese i-covid waphuma uCouncil S2 kwangena leyo council kwangena uMarumo iCouncil naye still usasitshela ngalezo hayi ngizanilungisela una 3 years umarumo akakenzi next akuna action ayithathile la ukuthi mhlambe asakhele or mhlambe asisikele isidende akasikele isidende akenzi next uhlezi nje uthulile lokathi hayi hlalani ngizanilungisela nali sonto ngapha kunesonto la uzozilungisela kanjani ngoba nali isonto kunesonto elila icrime over bayasikokotela ebusuku silele la bajamba khona la efensini bayasitshontshela khona la mawushiye impahla lapha ngaphandle angeke uma usithelile mhlawumbe ye toilet impahla seyilahlekile yonke into yela ayilungi next president please try the best manje akuzame ngcono ke kubonakala into oyenzayo manje akozame manje nawe sibone nathi ukuthi sine president ngoba amanye ama president bengasebenza kahle nawe zama ukuthi usebenze njengamanye ama president nathi usinike indawo zokuhlala ngithi uMandela wabanika abantu ama-RDP umanje wena waye ukasinika ama-RDP asinawo ama-RDP thina siyahlupheka abantwana bethu bazibabhema ama-drugs ngendaba yokuthi ngani kuyahlupheka siyahlupheka safika kule ndawo sabopha amaphondo emakhanda namhlanje sigugela kule indawo lezi please zama ngiyacela kakhulu ayikuthi ngiyalwa inhliziyo yami ibhlungu ukuthi ngani ngiyagula kumanje ngizofela khona la ibhokisi lami liphumele emgugwini kodwa mara anginandawo.
Siyabonga kakhulu mama ngalawa mazwi lawa. The Mlambo as well as the Vilakazi family here in Ivory Park are basically saying, Mr. President, say something to us that is going to change our situation. They're complaining about not ever having electricity in this particular area. And as a result of that, there are issues relating to crime that they, as the elderly and even the young people, have to contend with every single day. They're saying that they want President Cyril Ramaphosa to speak about, Sakina, as well as Ubongiwe, the bread and butter issues. I think that's what South Africans care about. They want to know that whatever the president says today is something that would lean towards the hopes of changing their lives. While those successes are there by government, they say that there's still more work that needs to be done. And they say they hope that, while others get to experience a load shedding every now and again, this including just last weekend, they've never had electricity. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Ulrich, who has got more on the expectations from South Africans.
Hi, good evening, and thank you very much, Griselda. As we can see, the military performing ceremonial functions there in Cape Town, just as before the SONA. We're at the home of Peter Strydom, of course, who has given the ultimate sacrifice when he died in Goma in the DRC. We're with his wife, Jessica Strydom. Jessica, when you look at those pictures of the military, performing those ceremonial duties, you guys are in mourning. We also heard today that your husband's body will not come as they said. There's going to be a bit of a delay. How do you feel?
At this moment, angry and also scared of what can happen. Because he wants to be cremated, so it is difficult to know will he be in that state for still to get his wishes through. So I'm very angry at this moment and very frustrated at this moment, but I understand also that they're trying their best, but hopefully we get news soon.
And you're coping as a family unit, he leaves behind children as well.
Yes, we have 3 boys. My oldest is 15, the middle one turning 12, and the youngest is turning 9. So it's difficult. They have their own ways of dealing with it. But for me as a mother, I know this is a long way to go still. So my biggest concern at this moment is they're just getting used to of the idea that their father isn't coming back home. But when the funeral and stuff starting, that's when the reality is going to hit them. That's what I'm scared of the most. So I don't know what's going gonna hold for us when we get there. So me as a mother, I'm still grieving. So yeah, I'm taking day by day.
So today is, of course, the State of the Nation address. The President will talk about various things that affect the country as well. What do you want him to say specifically about soldiers being stationed in the DRC and, of course, your husband as well?
For me, that already lost someone in the DRC, hopefully I want to know what is his plan, what is he doing from his side as a president to make sure that the bodies of the deceased and the people that got hurt is returning home soonly. I want to know, is he there to say, listen, this is what the situation is, but we are trying our best? Is he stepping up as the president? My biggest concern at this moment is that he's not stepping up at this moment as a president, because he didn't. I mean, it's almost 2 weeks now since the passing of my husband, and he didn't say anything on the news about or give condolences even to the families that have lost somebody. And for me, I think he must get all his soldiers back at home, even those that didn't get hurt or didn't pass away, so that the families of those that are still in South Africa can be ensured and know that their loved ones that is still alive is okay.
Talking about loved ones, Jessica, and I know you guys were childhood sweethearts. You've been together for half of your lives.
Yes.
How would you like Peter to be remembered?
For me, he died as a hero. And that's how I want people to know and keep on remembering. He died as a hero. So I don't want negative news and stuff that comes out reflect on his memory, because for me and my children, he died as a hero. And that is what he will be for the rest of our lives. So yeah, that's what I want.
Thank you for sharing, Jessica, and condolences again from us here at the SABC, and of course from myself as well. Like Jessica said, they basically just want Peter Strijdom's body to be returned home, and so that they can obviously start to make arrangements, funeral arrangements. She mentioned that it was his wish that he be cremated, and they're hoping that they'll still be able to do that once the body arrives in South Africa. Of course, also saying, that for the rest of their lives, he'll be remembered as the hero that he was.
All right, and welcome back to Parliament. And what a story there, Bongiwe, the Strijdom family, and our condolences, to the Strijdom family and all the other families who have lost loved ones in the front lines. And, heartbreaking to listen to the ages of the children, 15, 12, and 9. Who will now grow up without a father. And, as Mr. Strijdom expressed there, what she would be listening out for from the president as to, obviously in the immediate term, the repatriation of the remains of their loved ones, but beyond that also, the kind of support, psychosocial and otherwise, that these families will need.
And which is going to be quite critical, Sakina, and you can see there from her eyes that the pain is still quite raw. And she says she understands a lot is still being done to assist the families in order to get back the remains of their loved ones. But as you speak about this issue of psychosocial support, one thinks about the little ones. Have they even gotten any kind of a assistance at all, and who's reaching out to them and having these conversations in order to try and process what's happening. Because as the nation, yes, we may speak of numbers, but these are families that are speaking of their own loved ones, and certainly even a lot of focus towards that, I suppose, when the president speaks tonight as to what exactly are they going to say as government when it comes to the process going
and of
forward.
Course, many feel, Bongiwe, given the magnitude of what has happened in Goma, in the DRC, that perhaps this should be the first priority for the president to address. So we're going to listen out to hear what ultimately does get said, but of course still so many questions. Earlier on, the president's spokesperson Vincent Magwenya was asked about the latest regarding the repatriation of the remains of these soldiers, and he said, well, the statement is clear. The statement is not clear, Magwenya. The statement still leaves a lot of questions unanswered, because the statement says that things are now with the United Nations, who will then follow through with that repatriation, but it says it's been delayed, but no reason as to why the process has been delayed. And this is what we've been hearing for a while now, a few days running, that we are expecting the repatriation of these remains, but of course it hasn't happened.
And a lot of families, Sakina, will also be wanting to understand, you know, how that process will unfold. Where are some of the bottlenecks? Because it's one thing to talk about the process, but it's another to then speak about the bottlenecks and how then do they begin to contend with what's happening, what are the timeframes and all of that. But you have seen on your screens that we are seeing the members of the SANDF as per usual when it comes to the State of the Nation address, and to help us also understand what we are seeing in front of us, who are these members, the significance of this particular part of the State of the Nation address. As we are still on the build-up, we do have Brigadier General Mashadi Malefahlo, who's the Chief of Staff of the SA Army Support Formation, as well as the Captain of the South African Navy, that is Courtney Hendricks, Officer Commanding Naval Stores Wingfield. Hey, these titles, doesn't it feel like you and I need a bit more titles?
It certainly does, and a uniform to boot as well. Thank you so much to both of you for coming through this evening. And of course, this is one of the parts of the SONA that I really look forward to.
You know?
Yes. It just not just looking at, you know, the spectacle that unfolds, but also just listening as those with the knowledge to my left, you know, talk us through what is going on.
One thing I'm hoping for this year, right? Just one thing, Sakina, that we catch the fly past. It's so
we
quick.
never catch it.
We just want to catch it. That's all we want.
Never catch the fly past. I'm not holding my breath, because by the time we think we see it, it's past. But thank you so much for coming through. So once again, you know, every year we do this, but it seems as though it's new every year for all of us. But let me just start by perhaps first, and I know we're not going to speak politics to you, that's not why you're here, but you know, you have fallen comrades in the DRC. A message from your side in that regard.
Thank you so much for inviting us, beautiful ladies. Yes, over to my deputy.
Good evening, and so yes, again, thank you for having us with you this evening.
And when you know, think about the fact that right now, today, we are watching these visuals, South Africans are probably asking themselves, what are you talking about when you're talking about a ceremonial guard of honor? What is that?
Yes. Okay. The ceremonial guard of honor from the SANDF is presented annually during the SONA. What it signifies, this is the highest military ceremonial honors presented to the head of state. It is actually an international norm. So that is the highest military ceremonial honors that we are presenting to the president as our commander-in-chief.
Is it only reserved for him?
Yes. This ceremonial event is specifically for the president as the head of state.
So I'm sure you can see on the screens right now, we can see the members have lined the streets, Captain. And one is also wondering, let's speak about who gets to have this opportunity to be able to line the streets, to give this highest honor to the head of state.
So normally the members are then taken from various units, from various, they identified, and they are then, the names are then put forward, and they are then put on an order, and they have to be here. So it starts off with, for the street lining, it starts off with those nominations, and then as far as the National Ceremonial Guard is concerned, they are an elite unit, if I can call it that, who do these ceremonial events, because when the president is present, and they are required to be there. If let's say a foreign head of state visits, and there's a guard of honor for them, then the ceremonial guard is present.
And of course, who is with the president? Because I would imagine that there would be someone with the president all the way through.
From the residential area, the president will be escorted by the military police, yes, in a form of motorbikes. And upon arrival here at the parliament, we've got our 2 senior military officers from the SABC that are called the aide-de-camps. And as it says aid, they will be aiding the president when he arrives here to the podium where the president will receive the national salute.
And when you then, you know, especially now, because you say that these are 8 members of the elite units and all of that, there is that fly past as well. And one, you know, always gets the sense from South Africans to say, my goodness, it's so fast, it's so professionally done, it's synchronized so well. Who then gets to be part of that? Because certainly cannot just be any pilot.
Yes, but again, this is not something that they decide on a day or 2 before the time. It gets done before the time, long before the time. They get rehearsed. There are different formations that they fly. Today we'll see the line astern formation, where the 3 helicopters that are participating will be in one line, just astern of each other. So it goes about availability, hours, experience. You can't take anybody, especially today, some trying conditions. They've got quite a gusty wind today, so you need some experience.
And I was going to ask about that, to say just how much of a challenge is it?
Yeah, so yes, the helicopter will get blown around a bit, but nothing that they cannot handle. This is still well within the operating parameters.
And you did say there was a nominations process, Captain. So how does that work? You know, do you just open it up to all the forces and anyone can nominate anyone, or do you nominate within your division?
So within the divisions, we are given an order from the top. So it first goes top down to say that you will provide the following. So, and then it goes right down to the unit level, where that unit is then told you will provide 10 or 15 or 30 people, depending on the size of your unit, and that information then gets filtered all the way back up again, and it's compiled into this, what we see behind us.
And Brigadier, when we speak about the members behind us, right, and the president will arrive, they will receive him. Let's take our viewers through that process and what will unfold. As soon as the president arrives, what then do they do?
Okay. Upon arrival of the president, we'll have the 2 door openers that will be waiting for the president. And the 2 door openers will be opening the doors for the president. Then the president will enter through the gate. And when he enters in there will be 2 military senior officers from SABC that will be waiting for the president. As I already alluded, they are called the aide-de-camp because they will be aiding the president to the podium where the president will be receiving the national salute. As soon as the president is in place, that will be now exactly 1900 hours. Then we'll have the national salute. The national anthem will start to play. At that moment, our activities are synchronized. It will be the national salute by the National Ceremonial Guard. It will be the 21-gun salute and the salute flight in the form of a formation. They all go simultaneously. By the time the national anthem finished, then they will be done.
So, Captain, from the time that the president leaves his residence, this whole procession will be lined. So, who will we be seeing today?
Who will be seeing today?
Yes. Who will be lining the procession for the president?
Oh, okay, in that regard. So we have the Army, starting with the senior service, the Army, then the Air Force as well. SA Navy is represented, as well as the SA Medical Health Services. So those people that are present will be standing in the seniority. The Army is always the senior service, then the Air Force, then the Navy, and then the Medical Health Services. And then, so as the procession moves, they will then pass and they will be saluted as they proceed.
There's something you said, Brigadier, that I want to stay with, which is, always an interesting point. It's just the time aspect of it, right? You said 1900 hours, he must be on the podium. And you then think about the fact that when the first shot goes off for the 21-gun salute, it has to coincide with the national anthem and all of that. Let's speak about the timing aspect of it.
Just before you go, Brigadier, let's just welcome our SABC 2 viewers. So they have now joined us. Thank you so much. And of course, SABC 2 viewers, but everybody else on the other platforms that the SABC is running as well. Those who are streaming via YouTube, those who are watching via DTT.
Watching us on SABC Plus.
SABC Plus on the app.
Everything.
All those avenues.
Got it covered.
Everybody, most welcome.
And a very good evening to you. We are still in conversation with, the two members who are explaining to us what you're seeing on your screens, because yes, this is the ceremonial guard. A lot is going into this particular procession, but there's in fact, there's a method to it, SK, because you listen to how the guns go off, the 21-gun salute goes off, the first shot has to coincide with the singing of the anthem at the same time, 1900 hours, he must be on the podium. The timing aspect of it, it seems to also be one of the most critical aspects here.
I must say to you that the drill, it all goes with the drill. Drill is part of the military. We have a military ceremonial manual. So on a daily basis, we do drill. Every soldier, on a daily basis, we do drill. So by the time we come here, drill is in our blood. Because every morning, either for 5 minutes in the morning upon arrival at work, 5 to 30 minutes, depending on the activities of the day, you have to do drill. So drill is in our blood. But when it comes to preparing for this important ceremonial event, we have to synchronize the time and the space. And that is why we will have to arrive in Cape Town 4 days before. Because of the event, it involves 4 arms of services. As my colleague has already alluded, it involves the SA Army, it involves the SA Air Force, SA Navy, and the Military Health Service. So we come together in order to synchronize what you said, that it involves a lot of synchronizing in terms of time and space, and we cannot miss it. For example, as you indicated, that 21-gun salute. When the national anthem finishes, then we must be done with the firing of the 21-gun salute. So there is a 5-minute intervals which we must practice for that firing.
I just quickly want to introduce our guests to the viewers who have joined us later than our start. So we have to my left Brigadier General Mashadi Malefahlo, who's Chief of Staff, SA Army Support Formation, and we also have Captain in the SA Navy, Captain Courtney Hendricks, Officer Commanding Naval Stores Wingfield. So these are our two guests. So I just wanted to know, what happens if you don't hit the drill times? Will there be repercussions when you go back to base, or will we just let it slide, Captain?
There will always be repercussions. We cannot let it slide. With these events, we always try and make things look as good as possible. I always joke, it must look like a swan that's on the water. Everything looks calm, everything looks perfect, but underneath the little legs are going like that. And sometimes we have a bit of excitement behind the scenes, but we try and make sure everything's coordinated, because we have people who are coordinating, who are calling, being lookouts and making sure that the synchronization is in place. It's not just that everybody guesses what the other person is about to do.
Let's talk about the fly past and the details of that, because there's 3 helicopters and all of that. Can we talk about the details of the fly past?
General, I don't know if you want to start, but I can go.
You can go ahead, Captain.
So we have the 3 helicopters. The first one is the Lynx helicopter. It's a predominantly maritime helicopter that we bought with when we bought the frigates, and it's deployed. Essentially, you'll see that there's a big, nice Navy badge on the side of the helicopter. Although the Air Force uses and operates it, there's a big Navy badge on the side of it for the maritime environment, for search and rescue, and to assist with all kinds of things at sea, replenishment, etc. Then the next one is going to be the Oryx helicopter, which is your medium to heavy lift helicopter. We saw one flying past not so long ago, and that is used internally. It can also be used on board sea vessels. If the flight deck is big enough, it can be used. And then the last one is the Kawasaki BK117, and that is a lighter lift helicopter, which sometimes, that shouldn't be the fly past. It's sometimes used for like a spotter or for command and control purposes. So that might sit further back in the operational environment and be used to coordinate events, etc.
So they don't call it military precision for nothing, because we heard the sound and immediately Brigadier looked at her. You know. What was that in? It's not yet. It's not yet. It's not time.
Okay. Brigadier, who takes the lead when it comes to the fly past?
The fly past, we've got the pilots and they've got their own captain. However, on the ground, we've got a liaison officer. And the liaison officer is the one actually that communicates with them in terms of the time and the movement. We call it a liaison officer on ground to air communication.
So is that the person who will be talking to them about when to start, how much time they have and all of that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's all there. 1851, 9 minutes before the president speaks is when it will happen. You see, I'm paying attention to the precision here. And they will be flying at 90 knots, 160 kilometers per hour, and they will be 400 feet high. You see, I'm paying attention. You must pay attention when you're with the military.
The thing, yes, go ahead, Captain.
Yeah, and something like this cannot just happen. You need the air traffic controllers to make sure the airspace is clear and all those things, because there are other commercial aircraft, and often with an event like this, our timing has to be specific. So we have to make sure that the warnings are out to say this is happening, that is happening, etc.
And you can see these live visuals are still live for you at the Cape Town City Hall. And this is where President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver his State of the Nation address at 7 o'clock, as we heard.
Yep.
This is the Deputy President arriving, Sakina.
So this is exactly why we have Captain and Brigadier here with us, because they're going to talk us through what is happening on the screen. Yes. So, Brigadier?
Okay, what we just saw now on the screen is the arrival of the Deputy President And you can see now is our door openers opening for the Deputy President. And when the Deputy President was approaching the Parliament, he was led by the motorbikes from the military police, 10 motorbikes. Yes.
So in terms of that, are they then the same motorbikes that will lead the president? Do they go back and come back with the president, or is it a totally different motorcade?
It's a different totally motorcade.
And the number of motorbikes that accompany the president and the deputy president, there is a difference there as well.
That is
yes.
correct.
So how many, it's 10 now for the deputy president and the president?
28.
Right, as we see Deputy President Paul Mashatile there, accompanied there by the Deputy Speaker, Annelie Lotriet, making his way into the House. And of course, it is a joint sitting of the two Houses of Parliament. So you will have the National Assembly Speaker as well as the Chair of the National Council of Provinces. And in this instance, the two deputies accompanying the Deputy President and his spouse. And this is of course happening live. We are coming to you from Parliament and of course just talking you through the proceedings.
And the presiding officers, while standing, will then be bowing to the left and then to the right in greeting, as well as request a moment of silence when it comes to prayer or meditation. And when everyone is seated, the presiding officer will then read out the notice calling the joint sitting and then call on the president to deliver his address to the joint sittings. Sakina, I think we're somewhat, 5 minutes to the president's arrival?
Something, well, why are we guessing? Military precision in the House. So
and they're looking at the watch.
They're looking at the watch. Every time you say something, they look at the watch.
As the military, we give 8-minute intervals. Yes.
Oh, so 8 minutes.
Yes.
So the Deputy President arrives 8 minutes
after the president is supposed to be here.
Wow. You see, and every year, in as much as we do this every year, you always learn something. So that's something I've never heard before.
Me
that
too,
it's the
yeah.
8-minute interval. So thanks for that.
Captain, let's talk about this moment now.
Oh, those would be the door openers. So they're starting to take position now. Obviously expecting the arrival of the president soon. I cannot quite see. I don't know if it's my glasses or my eyes failing me, but those look like junior officers to me.
Yeah, it's officers.
Yes. So they will be standing there waiting to open the door. All again part of the ceremonial members who've been identified in the specific roles, because the instruction would be that we need so many people for the following roles, and they would then be identified for that. And they have to stand and wait until that car arrives. And yes, they have to make it look good.
And as we talk about this, Captain, Sakina mentions that it can be seen as something that happens every year, but I suppose it's quite significant, especially for yourselves as you prepare for it, and it mustn't feel like it's something that has become part of the mundane.
No, not at all. It's something that you still rehearse, even if you've done it 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. You go through it, you rehearse it, so that it should be almost second nature. But it's like a kitchen knife. You often have to resharpen the blade, and that's what we do. So that we just sharpen that blade, we hone those skills, make sure everything looks good, it's precise.
All right, on that note, let's take it all in as we wait the arrival there of President Cyril Ramaphosa. still watching the live visuals here as we await the arrival of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Before we get to, the music here, I do, Sakina, understand that oryx that we just saw now is following the imminent arrival of the President, Brigadier?
The oryx?
Yes.
The oryx was part of the escort from the presidential area. Then it will be joining the flight salute formation. Yes, as alluded by my colleague.
All right. So as we can see, there comes that procession. So, Captain?
That's going to be the president that is arriving. It will be, you will see the Navy members saluting there. These are the medical health services also getting ready. They're coming to attention. And as the procession goes past, they will then salute or present arms with their rifles, as we say. That's where they are saluting right now. At the back, you can also see the SABC who are on the horses. So it's quite difficult. I know it looks all smooth and easy, but when you're traveling on a motorbike at that kind of speed, it's not that easy. You have to control that, and it's again something that has to be rehearsed. It's not something that you can just decide this afternoon we're going to do it quickly. There's a lot of rehearsal involved in all of this, and that is why with these rehearsals we do the full rehearsal the day before. Evening before, we close up the city and we do the full rehearsal as well, so that minimal impact on traffic, but yes. So that would be the whole presidential cavalcade coming through, and they will then, you will see the motorbikes and some of the protection vehicles will break away just before the red carpet, and then the president will stop where the door openers are.
So let's just take in a bit of what we are seeing on our screens.
And that's where the single vehicle is now approaching the door openers.
And that precision again.
Yes. They know exactly where to stand so that they don't move when they have to open the door. At this moment, the aide-de-camps will then form up, and they will then basically guide and lead the way for the president to the pavilion where he will take the national salute. It will be 2 SA military health colonels. They should come into view very soon. That's them. And you'll see that they're wearing the auglets, as they're called, on their right-hand side, and it's basically pure gold auglet.
And welcome back to studio here with Brigadier General Mashadi Malifahlo as well as Captain Courtney Hendricks talking us through these proceedings. So these are the aides de camp you were talking about, Brigadier.
Yes, Sakina.
So also we are now at 1852 and no jets.
There were no jets scheduled for today.
Were they not scheduled for today?
No. It was said on Tuesday that they're going to tone down some of the activities.
That was one of them.
And that was one of them, yes.
And Captain, we were speaking about the aide de camp and the pure gold
That's
that they
correct.
have on them. Let's speak about that.
Normally the aigulets that are worn, those little gold things, they are actually service specific. So the Army, Air Force, Navy have got different colors braided within, and it's always worn on the left when whether you are with a service chief or as a staff officer on another parade. It's worn on your left, and it's got the service specific colors. For the president, everything is gold, and that comes from historic times when those little pegs that you see are actually used to be what you used to knock in the ground to tie the horse up in the evening. So it's part of that. You had your squire, and he would, the guy would then take the horse for him in the evening and tie it up. So that's actually where that piece of...
Brigadier, pardon me, before we take it all in, so the jets, was that the only scaling down that you would have put in place, or was there anything else of scaling down?
It was only that. As I said, that this military ceremonial honors to the president, we are guided by ceremonial doctrine. So we can only, it's either we do it correct or we don't do it.
All right.
Yes.
We got to do it correctly. We need to take you into that chamber right now. So without much further ado, let's pick up the proceedings inside the chamber.
Yeah!